Hello and welcome to another episode of Utopia Restorations. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Will and this is episode 4 on our E30 build. I'm going to give you a bit of a breakdown of some costs and also give you a bit of a build plan and the direction that I want this to go in. So this is episode 4. If you haven't seen any of the other videos, they are in a playlist so you can see it all the way back from when I went to Newquay in a day to go pick this up on a 500-mile round trip. Now, I sort of alluded to this before, but I now actually have a clear idea of the direction that I want to take this car and the things that I want to do with it. I've mentioned previously, it's got very low owners, but very high mileage, so it has been looked after. But this car will never ever be a concourse car. It's only a 1.6, it's got a lot of work that needs doing to it, as you can see in the previous episode with the amount of rust. So it's never ever going to be one that's going to be top of the level, anything like that. So I'm going to take it somewhere different and do something different with it. So let's start with the exterior and go around some of the exterior changes that I want to do. And then what we're going to do is after that, go into some of the costs and give you the breakdown as to why I think that this is actually one of the cheapest E30 Tourings that exists. So aesthetically on the front, I'm going to leave quite a lot of this. A lot of the rust that is down here that we sort of expected in the last video isn't actually causing too much damage. So I am going to leave that. I'm going to get a front lip because that is missing and is required. I do like the lights. Potentially, this is not definite, going for yellow covers on the outside and X's on the inside, or maybe Helia covers. One thing I am considering is potentially making these black. Hideous crime, I know, I do actually have a black set on the roof up there somewhere, but it doesn't have a lot of chrome, and I'm thinking that that all being black might look quite good. There is potential for some extra lights to go on the front. Not 100% on it, but potential. Before we get too much further on the outside, I may as well tell you the overall theme for this is going to be sort of road rally. It's going to be maybe sort of like the trials cars, you know, when you can get the ones where people do under 1.8 and you can take them up hills and go over silly things and stuff like that. Fully road legal, not fully race spec, but with a few things that sort of allude to being a bit different to normal. Of course, as you know, if you've been following this channel for a while, which if you haven't, please drop a subscribe down below. Massively helps out and helps us with our projects and doing cool content like this. We really like things rally. I don't know why, I'm just massively drawn to everything that's off-road, Land Rovers, rally cars, everything like that. And one of the things I did discover on this, and because of one of my other builds, is the BBS wheels down there that I love are 15 inches. And there's a lot of Pirelli Scorpion gravel tyres, which are about 250, 300 pounds each for sale, for about 100 pounds for a set of 4. They have been used, they are not perfect, but a lot of people want to get rid of them because they want brand new ones for their next rally stage. So that is what is going to be going on the wheels, which is then bringing me on to the next bit. Once all the rust is done, we are going for our heavy sort of mud flaps that we use. I do really like the mud flaps on the rear that the BMW does have, that are branded BMW, but potentially may want some heavier ones to give it a slightly more aggressive look. So it will be sitting a bit chunkier on the chunkier tyres. So chunky Pirellis on the front. Engine wise, I do want to do something cool with it. I do have a spare one, and I am wondering, this is 1.8, do I maybe put this on a bench and build this out to be something cool? Maybe look at ITBs, maybe look at headers, and then eventually drop this in, or potentially I need to use this as parts for that one to get it going. So engine wise, not a great deal of modifications, not a great deal of power I want, but I do want it to be something quite fun. I mentioned tyres, we're going for mud flaps on the outside, skirts and things like that I'm going to leave. Potential for roof bars and roof lights and a roof basket. Maybe, I'm not overly sure, but that's sort of down the line, that's a bit more aesthetic. Coming to the rear, you can see these BMW mud flaps that I spoke of. Quite like them, quite cool. But that does bring us on to this section. Now, a car that I looked at a while ago did actually have this fully chopped out. And although you may think that messes up the line, it does look quite cool. To give you an idea, from back here, this side here will be chopped out and will have a tubular bar going around. Now that may mean that is why those have to go, because those are fitted to the body, but I do think it gives it a really aggressive rear look, and of course solves my big problem of this being very rusted. I will have to do it in such a way that incorporates the tow bar and doesn't mess up too much, because under all this things in the back, there's the spare tyre there, so that will hang low. So we want to make sure that that is still not visible from the outside. Exhaust wise, I'd really like a twin tip Scorpion exhaust, however, budget depending, maybe just have to go for standard or a used one. There may be some graphics on the outside, but not 100%. I sort of want it to look like a standard E30, and then you start to realise the wheels, maybe the mud flaps. So interior wise, I'll show you that and the things I want to do. So if you watched my last video, there was the debate of the carpet. It's got a lot of sound deadening in it and could be very useful. And I quite like that this is all very stock. However, The stock seats I do like. The stock cream, the cream carpet, not so much. So I've given it some thought and the decision has been made. I'm going to chop all of this out. I'm going to rip out the carpet and just cut it off. Although, yes, it will cost me a lot of money to get a new one of these. My plan is not to. So it would be a very harsh car with just the metal, and we maybe run that for a little bit. And then what I can do is if I run the metal and no sound deadening, if I find it too much, what we can do is put in some Dynamat and then get black carpet, which I will cut to size and glue in and upholster myself and do it that way, because I think that's going to be better. So yes, this can save me a lot of time. Chop it out, get rid of it. I know a lot of people say these are worth a lot of money. I don't think this one will be. It's wet, it's old. Yeah, so cutting out carpets. Seats, I really do like the seats. They're just sort of that old school 80 vibes. However, I am looking at buckets in the front because I do quite like buckets, which makes it a bit different. Potentially, yeah, so bucket seats in the front, full no carpet. I'm looking at maybe a hydro as well because they do look pretty cool, particularly if this is down to bare metal. There may be some room for locating it around here, sort of out the way of the actual handbrake. Potentially, I've seen some, I think, do it back here with a bit of an extension. We'll see. There is the argument that I've seen recently for hydros, rather than the vertical ones, like, say this, which, when you pull them, are pulling you out of your seat. So you imagine the force is pulling you in, which means you yourself are being pulled out of the seat. It's actually to have the bottom floor mounted ones where you're pulling up, which the force is then pulling you down into your seat, if that makes any sense to anyone. Other bits that are going to be happening are going to get built by Basil, because have to, all of my cars do. Potentially switching for a Momo, but at the moment I do quite like this, so I do want to keep it 5 seats, so well 4 for this at the moment, so that will be staying in the rear. Potentially may not be emptied, we'll see. They're going to be coming out at some point, and of course the roof lining needs to be done. I may try some tips for this because not all of it has departed. You can actually very easily get in there and get some adhesive and sort of roller it back on. We shall see. Other than that, aesthetically, it's going to be the wheels and tyres that are going to make the most difference. Of course, interior-wise, buckets, the rear end will look a bit different, potentially with the roof rack, but I'm undecided on that. But yeah, just a bit more of a road rally sort of style. So it's going to be something different. It's not something insane. I'm not going for some crazy BMW M57 build, M SWAT, like, you know, 4-wheel drive. It's going to be fairly simple, but it will be quite unique in its own sense. It'll be something a bit different, something that I can enjoy personally, and thrash about and have fun doing it. And you know me, I like a low horsepower car that's a bit more interesting to drive. You do have to drive it to its full level, because personally I'd rather be driving a low horsepower car to the absolute red line than having a 500 horsepower car that you can't because you'll be in prison. Let me crack out the whiteboard and let me get into some costs, and then you can see why I think this will be the lowest cost E30 that will be out there. So in this build budget, there are going to be some things that I will exclude, and I'll explain why. So things that aren't going to be included in this are going to be like our tooling, and along with that is going to be things like, say, transport or knowledge and experience that we've already got. So we'll start at the top. So we actually got the E30 itself, which I picked up for 1,850. And this included the car, a set of doors, a dash, 2 front wings, a 1.8 engine, and something else. There's a few other bits. There's some spares in there. Oh, and the set of BBSs. And of course the car itself. And I've realised actually that included a rear end and a front end. So whilst I do have these two, the parts are over there, it is the consideration of, do I actually fit those, or do I want to maybe sell them and sort of make do with what I've got? So all of this was for 1,850 from E30 Luke. If you need any E30 spares, let him know. He is the man to sort you out. So if you actually break this down into sort of a value of them, I think the door set is 150, a dash, a good one's about sort of 50, 2 front wings are about 80 each, so 160. Engine, I got that for £50, sort of seen some other ones say for about 100, so let's go 100. some other spares that were additional. Let's round up to say 40. BBS wheels, I've seen those on their own for about 400 with some, these have got maybe worse tyres, so let's go 350. Rear end and front end, I haven't actually seen many of these about, but I'd say about 150 each. So if we just add up all the parts we have, so just in spares we have 1,150. So effectively making the car about, what's that, £600, which again is pretty good. £700, AS maths kicking in there. So some of these may potentially sell later. So looking at some of these, I may sell, the dash may go. Doors, they could do with being done, but actually when I've looked at a lot of the rust, it's only little bits at the bottom. Engine, potentially BBS is a stone. So we could make some money back that way. But the total build budget for this is £3,000. So other bits that I know I need to get is sheet metal. That's probably going to be about £50 for the small areas that I need to get. I know that I need to get the rear quarters, because where those are a bit intricate, I'm not going to be able to get those. So that's 180 for those. Now, this is potentially the part that is going to be a bit more costly. I know the whole front brakes and the rear brakes need doing, so we need to get front brakes, rear brakes, potentially suspension. I need to redo the fuel lines, and we need to get a new fuel tank. So I have been looking this up, and I am speaking to someone. So suspension, we've got, it's going to be about 200. Fuel tank is another 100. Suspension does actually include the full hub, so it's strut and with the brake. I am going to need new brake calipers though. So then we've got new parts. I am looking at about 350, I think it was. Fortunately, I've already got oil and things like that. Rear quarters, suspension, fuel tank, got the front brakes and the front lines. Some other bits that we need to get is the front lip. That's again about 50 I've seen for those. And also, of course, the tyres. In a set for 100. Now they will need fitting, which will be an additional cost, but you can sort of start to see some of the costs that are here. This is not firm because things may change, but this is sort of the ideal build budget for the car. We've got fuel lines as well, which aren't going to be a lot because you've got the tooling for those already, as I can borrow that. Other bits, buckets are needed, and potentially, well, not needed. So I'd say some of these parts I'd put down as like additional extras. A lot of this is things that we need to get through to an MOT level. And then afterwards, once we've got the MOT level, it's things that could be fun. So buckets, 150, bars, I've seen those again about 150, and then say a basket maybe, another 150. So totaling all of this part, which is the actual car and parts, so totaling all these parts that we require is 1030, totaling all of it together 28,580. So in theory, we should be within the budget. Now, we're going to hold on to this, and we're going to use this again as a bit of a reference point for what the actual final build cost is. So there you have it, the full build plan and full build cost of what we think the E30 Touring Road Rally sort of style, I don't know, we'll come up with a name for it later, is going to cost. If you have enjoyed it, as always, make sure you drop a subscribe down below and check out our shop. We've got some E30 themed merch, and we're getting more and more. Of course, we've got a Land Rover and Mustang, but the E30 is definitely growing. It's definitely growing in my heart because it's a beautiful looking car. Can't wait to get out there and drive it. It does start now, as you've seen in the previous videos, so I'm very keen to get it back on the ground with some good tyres and some good wheels and some front brakes. Even if it is a bit rusted, just get out there and drive it legally on a privately permitted farm, which we're fortunate to be on. So yes, this is episode 4, and hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon in next week's video.